The sky over Raven's Cove looked like brushed steel, smooth, cold, and endless. A pale mist hung above the water, blurring the line where the sea met the sky. Lena Torres stood at the edge of the wooden pier, wind pulling at her hair, and wondered why the air tasted faintly like iron. "Hey, babe, look up." Ryan's voice cut through the hiss of the waves. He was already setting up his camera on a tripod, the little red recording light flickering against the fog. Behind him, Maya and Chris carried a cooler from the SUV, laughing as if they weren't surrounded by miles of empty coastline. Lena forced a smile. They'd been planning this trip for weeks, a reunion of sorts before everyone's lives scattered again. Ryan had been chasing viral content for his channel. Maya and Chris had jobs in the city. And Lena, she was supposed to be finishing her thesis on marine ecology. Instead, she was here, trying to convince herself that she wasn't just following Ryan's obsession. "All right," Ryan said, adjusting the camera's angle toward the beach. "First take. Return to Raven's Cove, the forbidden shore." He grinned at her. "How's that sound for the intro?" Lena frowned. "It sounds like you're daring something." "Exactly," Ryan said, eyes bright with adrenaline. "That's how you go viral." The tide rolled in softly, brushing over the sand like breathing. There was something unsettling about the beach. Not just its emptiness, but its silence. No gulls. No chatter of waves breaking on rocks. Just a low, distant hum, like sound swallowed by depth. Maya dropped the cooler and looked around. "Are you sure this is legal? I mean, there's no sign saying it's open." Chris shrugged. "No signs saying it's closed either." They laughed, but Lena caught something flicker behind them, a shadow under the waves, gone as soon as she blinked. Probably a fish, she told herself. The cove was full of odd currents. Still, as she looked closer, the tide didn't seem to move naturally. It shifted in uneven pulses, like something was breathing beneath it. They set up camp near the dunes. By sunset, the beach glowed in golden light, turning the sand copper and the water black. Maya unpacked the Bluetooth speaker. Chris started a small fire in a rusted pit. Ryan filmed everything. The laughter, the beer, the sunset. "Guys," Ryan said, half laughing, "can you believe this place was supposedly cursed? 10 years ago, the whole beach shut down because of unexplained disappearances." "That's what the forums say." "Yeah, right," Maya scoffed. "Probably just drunks falling off the pier." Ryan zoomed the camera toward the tide, his tone suddenly serious. "They never found the bodies. Not even one." The group fell silent for a moment. Only the crackle of the fire filled the air. Then Chris laughed it off. "Dude, stop trying to scare us. It's not even Halloween." Ryan smirked, but his expression lingered a second too long on the water. Lena noticed. After dinner, they walked along the beach with flashlights. Lena collected shells, half out of habit, half to calm herself. But the shells here were strange, too smooth, too dark, as if made from glass rather than calcium. Some had spiral holes drilled perfectly through the center, like tiny eyes. When she picked one up, she thought she felt a faint vibration, like a heartbeat. "Hey, check this out," Ryan said, holding his camera toward the cliffs. At the far end of the cove, something jutted from the rock, a metal structure, corroded but intact. A door. It looked like the entrance to an old storm drain or research outpost. "Is that part of the old marine station?" Lena asked. Ryan nodded slowly. "Yup, the one that shut down after the incident. Perfect for the video." "No way," Maya said. "You're not going in there tonight." "Of course not," Ryan said, but he was already walking closer. "Tomorrow." Lena hesitated, looking down. The tide had come in faster than she expected. The water reached her ankles, icy cold, and something brushed against her leg. She yelped and jumped back, flashlight beams swinging wildly. Chris laughed. "Seaweed, Lena. Relax." But when she turned the light back toward the water, there was no seaweed. Only the faint outline of a handprint in the wet sand, not pressed onto it, but rising from beneath. That night, the fog thickened. The fire burned low. Maya and Chris had passed out in their tent, and Ryan was still reviewing footage by lantern light. Lena sat beside him, hugging her knees, staring out at the endless gray. "Do you hear that?" she asked quietly. "Hear what?" "The waves, they sound wrong. Too steady." Ryan listened. The sound wasn't like waves anymore, more like breathing. A deep, rhythmic inhale and exhale, as if the entire ocean were alive and listening. He brushed it off, smiling. It's just the current echoing through the cove. But later, when they crawled into their tent, Lena couldn't sleep. Every few minutes, she thought she heard someone whisper her name. Not from outside, but from underneath the sand. By morning, the tide had gone out unusually far, and carved in the damp shore, where the water once touched, was a line of fresh footprints, leading toward the cliffs. Bare footprints. 5 of them. 1 for each of them, including her own. By the second morning, the air at Raven's Cove felt heavier, like breathing through silk. The sun was pale and distant, smothered behind a wall of fog that never seemed to lift. Ryan was already awake, crouched near the surf with his camera, narrating in his low, performative tone. Lena listened from the tent, trying to convince herself that the ache behind her eyes was just from bad sleep, not the strange hum that had haunted her dreams. She dreamed of the ocean last night, but not water. Something darker alive, coiling beneath the skin of waves. It whispered in a language she didn't understand, but she woke up with a single word echoing in her head. Return. They ate breakfast quietly. Even Chris, usually loud and teasing, was subdued. Maya kept glancing at the tide as though afraid it would suddenly surge forward. Lena forced a laugh. "You guys are acting like we're in a horror movie." Ryan smirked. "Maybe we are. The audience loves atmosphere." But when Lena looked into his eyes, there was something different there. Excitement, yes, but also fixation. The kind that made people ignore warning signs until it was too late. They decided to explore the cliffs after lunch. The structure they'd seen yesterday, the corroded metal door, was half buried under seaweed and barnacles. As they got closer, the smell hit them. Not salt or decay, but something metallic and sour, like blood. Ryan ran his fingers along the door. "It's welded shut." "Good," Maya muttered. "Let's keep it that way." But there was a faded sign, barely legible under rust. "Property of North Atlantic Research Initiative, access restricted." Lena brushed the sand away from the base and frowned. "There was no record of this lab in any marine archives," she said, "and I've read most of them." "So it's secret," Ryan said, grinning. "Even better." She gave him a look. "Ryan, this isn't content. It's contamination. We don't know what they studied here." He shrugged. "Then let's find out." By late afternoon, the fog rolled in again. The group returned to camp to find their tent flaps open, though no one remembered leaving them that way. Inside, their clothes were damp, not from rain, but salt water. Maya's voice trembled. "We were gone less than an hour." Chris held up something wet that had been stuffed into one of the sleeping bags. A seashell, black as obsidian, spiraling inward like a vortex. "It's still vibrating," he said, unnerved. Ryan filmed it, zooming close. "If this is a prank, it's genius." "It's not a prank," Lena whispered. "Listen." The hum she'd heard in her dreams was back, soft, rhythmic, coming from somewhere below. It wasn't the wind, or the waves, but something deeper, closer. It sounded like the heartbeat of the sea. That night, the mist turned thicker, almost tangible, curling around their legs like fingers. The fire barely burned. The flames sputtered as if smothered by invisible hands. Maya refused to sleep. "I swear I saw someone out there," she said, eyes wide, standing in the surf. Chris followed her gaze. There was nothing, but the mist played tricks. Shapes formed and vanished. Silhouettes flickered and broke apart. Ryan aimed the camera at the water. "Perfect atmosphere," he whispered, more to himself than them. He focused the lens and froze. "Ryan," Lena asked softly. He didn't respond. When she took the camera from him, she saw it. Something standing in the reflection of the tide. A shape tall and thin, its limbs too long, its head bowed. But when she looked up, nothing was there. Only the endless, rolling sea. Later, as everyone tried to sleep, Lena lay awake listening. The waves had changed rhythm again. Not random, not natural patterned. 3 soft crashes, 1 long pause. 3 again. 1 long. Over and over. She realized it wasn't waves. It was knocking. From below. The next morning, they found Ryan gone. His sleeping bag was empty, but his camera was still running, pointed at the tent's entrance. The recording showed him sitting up sometime around 3 a.m., eyes open, as if listening to something just outside. Then he stood, walked into the fog, and whispered, "It's calling." The footage ended there. Panic rippled through the group. Chris wanted to pack up and leave immediately, but the car keys were gone. So was the satellite phone. They split up. Lena and Maya searched the cliffs, while Chris checked the road. The fog never lifted. It felt like walking inside a dream where every sound was muffled except the sea's slow pulse. When Lena reached the metal door again, it was open. No sign of damage. No sign of anyone forcing it. Just wide open, dark, and breathing cold air that smelled of rust and brine. Inside, a narrow tunnel led downward, carved into the rock. A single flickering light glowed somewhere deep within. "Lena," Maya whispered, gripping her arm. "We can't." A sound echoed from the tunnel. Not footsteps. Not Ryan's voice. Something like a chorus of whispers overlapping each other. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. And underneath them all, one clear word. Return. Lena turned to run, but the tide was already rising again, unnaturally fast. The waves surging higher than before, curling up the beach toward the cliffs. Something was coming out of the water. Something that should never have been unearthed. The open door in the cliff seemed to breathe. Cold air pulsed from within, carrying the scent of rot and iron. Lena gripped Maya's hand as they stared into the darkness, the fog curling around their ankles like living smoke. "Ryan," Lena whispered, her voice trembling. "He went down there." Maya shook her head violently. "No. We wait for Chris. We—" Her words were cut off by a sound, a hollow thud from deep inside the tunnel. Then another, and another, like something knocking from the inside of the earth. Lena swallowed hard. She turned on her flashlight and stepped forward. "Maya, stay here." "Lena, don't," Maya hissed, gripping her sleeve. "You don't even know if he's alive. I can't just leave him." And before Maya could stop her, Lena disappeared into the dark. The tunnel was narrow, slick with condensation. The walls were carved from the stone itself, lined with pipes that leaked a thick, briny fluid. Every sound seemed amplified. Her heartbeat, her footsteps, the faint click of dripping water. But beneath it all was something else, a deep vibration, like a heartbeat coming from far below. The tunnel sloped downward. Every few meters, she found signs that people had been here. Rusted clipboards, shattered glass, decayed uniforms bearing the faded insignia of NARI, North Atlantic Research Initiative. Lena stopped at a corroded metal door, hanging half open. She pushed it with her shoulder. It groaned like an animal in pain. Inside was a small observation room, and what was left of a laboratory. Broken monitors, dissected marine specimens, suspended in brown liquid, and words carved into the wall with something sharp. "The sea remembers." Her flashlight flickered. For a moment, she thought she saw movement behind the glass window, something enormous, shifting in the water beyond. Then the light died. "Lena!" A voice, faint, desperate, echoed down the corridor. "Ryan!" She ran toward it, her breath fogging in the cold air. The tunnel opened into a cavern, half flooded by seawater. In the middle stood Ryan, waist deep, facing the far wall. "Ryan!" she shouted, splashing toward him. He didn't turn around. His camera was still strapped to his chest, blinking red, recording. "Ryan, we have to go. The tide's coming in." He finally spoke, voice hollow, distant. "It's not the tide." He turned, and Lena froze. His eyes were glassy, unfocused, and his skin shimmered like something beneath it was moving, tiny, translucent veins pulsing in rhythm with the deep vibration that filled the air. He smiled faintly, his voice breaking. They were studying it. Not fish, not currents. Something older, something that sleeps below the continental shelf. Lena stepped back, shaking her head. "Ryan, what are you?" They called it the pulse. He looked past her, toward the tunnel's entrance. "It's awake now." Maya's scream echoed through the passage. Lena turned and ran. The tunnel shook violently, dust raining from the ceiling. The deep hum became deafening, the sound of the entire cove breathing in. When she reached the entrance, the water was already rising, crashing into the rocks with unnatural force. Maya was nowhere in sight, only her flashlight, flickering near the sand. Then something emerged from the surf. At first, Lena thought it was seaweed. But it moved wrong, too deliberate, too fluid. A shape rose from the black water, tall, elongated, its skin rippling like liquid glass. Where its face should have been was only a spiraling cavity, like the inside of a shell. It stepped forward. The air trembled with a low, resonant note that shook Lena's bones. She stumbled backward, choking on fear, as more figures surfaced behind it. Dozens of them, crawling out of the sea like shadows born from the tide. They moved in rhythm, with the pulse. Lena sprinted up the beach, sand sucking at her boots. She could hear the creatures dragging themselves behind her, the wet slap of limbs against stone. Her lungs burned as she screamed for Chris, but her voice was swallowed by the wind. When she reached the campsite, everything was overturned. The tent shredded, the cooler cracked open, and Chris, he was standing by the fire pit, staring blankly toward the ocean. "Chris," she gasped, grabbing his arm. "We have to go." He turned slowly. His face was pale, eyes black and shining like water. When he opened his mouth, seawater poured out, spilling down his chest. Then he whispered, in a voice that wasn't his own, "It remembers you." Lena ran. She didn't know where, just away. The fog closed in, the ground trembling beneath her feet. She tripped over something in the sand, Maya's body, half buried, her hand still clutching a camera. Lena picked it up without thinking, then froze. The lens was pointed at the ocean. In the frame, something vast was rising beneath the waves, a silhouette too large to comprehend, stretching from horizon to horizon. Its surface glistened like 1,000 eyes opening at once. The sea roared. The hum became a scream. Lena turned to run toward the cliffs, but the tide crashed over her, dragging her down. The world became a blur of salt and cold and darkness. Something brushed her ankle, soft, almost gentle, and then wrapped around it. As she was pulled under, she heard Ryan's voice, faint and distant, whispering from the deep. It never forgot. When she opened her eyes again, she was lying on the shore alone. The beach was silent. The mist was gone, but the footprints were back, leading from the water toward her. 5 sets again, the last one stopping just beside her head, colorless, like the world had been bleached clean. Lena woke to the hiss of wind and the cry of distant gulls, the first she'd heard since arriving. For a moment, she thought it had all been a dream. The mist, the tunnels, the pulse. But then she saw the footprints in the sand beside her. 5 of them, leading straight from the water to where she'd been lying. And when she looked down at her ankle, she saw bruises, deep, circular, as though something had held her there. Her throat burned. Her skin was dry and cracked, lips split from salt. The camp was gone. No tents, no fire, no Ryan, no Maya, no Chris. Only her and the ocean, calm as glass, pretending nothing had ever happened. She staggered toward the SUV parked by the dunes. The windshield was shattered, the dashboard slick with salt. Inside, the keys sat neatly in the cup holder, as if placed there on purpose. Her hands shook as she turned the ignition. The engine sputtered, coughed, then started. The radio flickered to life, for half a second before static swallowed it. She drove. For miles, the coastline followed her, silent, endless, empty. She didn't stop until she saw the sign. Raven's Cove, closed indefinitely by order of state authorities, 1978. She pulled over, breathing hard. 1978. But Ryan had said the beach reopened 10 years ago, that someone told him it was safe again. So who sent the message? That night, she checked Ryan's laptop. Most of the footage was corrupted, nothing but white noise and static, except one file, rc_update_003.mp4. Lena hesitated, then pressed play. The video showed Ryan on the beach, just before he vanished. He looked directly into the camera, voice calm but trembling. "If anyone finds this, it's real. It's not a ghost story. It's something alive under the continental shelf. It feeds when we remember it. That's what the pulse is: memory. Consciousness echoing through the tide. Every story told about this place, every rumor, every whisper, it wakes it up again. He smiled weakly. So if you're watching this, it's already too late. Because now you remember it too. The video ended there. The camera light blinked once, then died. Lena sat frozen. The ocean outside her window looked still, but she could feel it again, that faint vibration beneath her floorboards. The pulse. Over the next few days, she tried to return to normal life. But normal didn't exist anymore. She'd wake at night to the sound of waves, even though she lived miles inland. Sometimes, she'd find puddles of salt water on her kitchen floor. Once, she woke up with sand under her nails. She started researching Raven's Cove again, this time in archived government documents, not the internet rumors. Most of the records were redacted, but she found one line in a declassified report, dated 1977, from the North Atlantic Research Initiative. Subject shows increasing influence over neural patterns through auditory resonance. Exposure above threshold causes permanent imprint. Carriers transmit through memory and storytelling. Beneath it, handwritten in faded ink. Seal the Cove. Silence is containment. 3 weeks later, Lena uploaded a video to Ryan's old channel. Her eyes were sunken, her tone calm and detached. She titled it, Beach Horror Story Update. In the video, she explained everything. The trip, the cove, the pulse. She said she wanted to warn people that no one should ever go there again. The video went viral overnight. Within days, Raven's Cove became an internet sensation. Explorers, vloggers, paranormal thrill seekers. They all went, and they all disappeared. The Coast Guard eventually sealed off the area again, declaring it unstable due to underwater seismic activity. But by then, it didn't matter, because the Pulse had found a new way to reach people. Through the screens, through the stories, through memory. Months later, a marine biologist reviewing coastal sonar patterns noticed something strange. A faint rhythmic signal echoing across the Atlantic floor. 3 short bursts. One long, repeating endlessly. Like the heartbeat of the ocean. Like knocking. And sometimes, late at night, when you're scrolling through videos, you might come across a clip called Beach Horror Story Update. It'll look like any other paranormal upload. Shaky footage, foggy beach, faint whispers. But if you watch closely, if you listen too long, you might start to hear it too. The Pulse. Candle epilogue. In the end, the sea didn't need to kill them. It only needed them to remember. And you just did.